Hi everyone, good afternoon, welcome back. Yeah, we'll wait for 2 more minutes because we are yet to see participants joining in. We'll continue in another 2 minutes. Okay. Okay, all right. Yeah, welcome back. So I think we are good to getting started. So coming to the last session for the day, right, our focus will be on trying to understand. Yeah, we've obviously seen about agents and how to build agents, right? Maybe with code, without code, all of the workflows, right? So we have got a fair understanding in the previous 3 4 sessions. Yeah. Now, in this session, what our focus will be is in terms of the evolution of agents and AI agents and agentic AI architecture, right? There's one new hype term, right, which is called MCP, Model Context Protocol. Yeah. So our focus is going to be on that thing for the day. Yeah. So we'll actually be saying what is MCP, and also we'll see further what is the agent to agent communication interface as well. Okay. So these are a couple of things that we'll be trying to understand. Okay. Yeah, 1 minute. Let me just share my screen. All right. Yeah. So hope you all can see my screen. Now, earlier, what we were discussing is
Sir, sorry to interrupt. Actually, your screen is not visible.
not yet. Okay. How about now, Sushmita?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Thanks. Yeah. So, okay, let us just do a quick walkthrough as to how we reach the part of agentic and agentic AI. Right? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Before we actually went into the AI building or the AI agent option, right? So, where we initially had the option for accessing an LLM. So, this was our LLM. What did the LLM do? What a LLM used to do? Or what can it do? It can still work. Yeah. What does it do? It takes questions, it takes prompts, and then it gives you a certain solution. It gives you access, right? You have a request that you do. So from the server, from the LLM, it will give you back a response. You are acting as a client. Yeah. Now, the moment you see any of the LLMs, you figure out that their response is only just answers. Yep. If you ever give a task to a LLM, does it fulfill that task to you? Does it give you the task? Does it give you the answer for that? Or, okay, it might give you the answer, but does it perform the task, the steps, the action? No, the LLM cannot do that. Okay. Which is why we went to AI based agents or assistants, right? Like example, you come to this. Notion is an AI based app. So there is an AI, a LLM within this. Right? Slack. Slack has an AI. Right? VS Code has a coding assistant. Yeah. Then we have Microsoft Teams. Yeah. And then within Microsoft Teams, right? So you could just see you have Microsoft Teams also having its own assistant, probably. I think this is a single term. Okay. So then came a problem of fragmentation. Yeah. What is this problem of fragmentation? Right. We did have all of the AI. See, earlier, if you go back maybe like how many 4 years, there was only ChatGPT, right? OpenAI released the first LLM, November 2022. There was only that. Then slowly, what happened? We were asking all of our questions then. Then slowly, new tools started to come in, right? It was not ChatGPT anymore. It was not just that, right? Google came up with its own solutions. So they got in Bard. Yeah. Then we had Microsoft or GitHub coming up with a Microsoft or GitHub Copilot initially, right? Then you had a Copilot interface with Microsoft 365. Google has its own, Microsoft has its own, right? OpenAI has its own. Three different options. Yep. Then after a while, slowly Perplexity came into picture. Then Claude came into picture. Correct? So then suddenly you did not have one tool anymore. You had five, six, seven tools, different options. Now, the moment this thing happened, yep, all of these apps like Teams was already there before GenAI or your LLMs came into picture. Right? Slack was already there. Yeah. Maybe Gmail already there. any of the tools, any of these kind of suite or tools already available, already present. Correct? So the problem there was these people thought, why not we have our own AI? Right? Why not we have a AI which is integrated into our platforms? So Slack got its own AI. Yeah. Then WhatsApp, you take for example WhatsApp. WhatsApp has a Meta's AI. Yeah. Notion, that's a AI based platform. Yeah. VS Code got AI. GitHub, right, got its own AI. So every one of them, they start creating their own AI. Yes, Amazon had its own AI. Yeah. AWS, then Microsoft, Google, Azure, OpenAI, Amazon, all of them, so many different options. Every one of them had their own AI. But then came the problem of fragmentation. Can an AI within Slack interact with AI in Gmail? No. Yeah. Sorry, can Amazon's AI interact with Azure's AI? Not necessarily. Correct. So these tools are there. They are now AI enabled. Right? So we came to a condition where all of these tools became AI enabled. But can those tools interact with each other? No. Right? People found themselves living in multiple AI worlds. So for example, what had happened is, think about it. You now have a requirement, right? You now have a requirement. You still use ChatGPT. No problem with that. Right? You have a requirement. You still use ChatGPT. Your data is stored in one file X. Then some other part of the data, some other information is stored in a completely different app Y. Something else is stored in some database Z. Yeah. Or you're using something that is stored in Drive, for example, Google Drive. Yeah. Maybe your data is in a MySQL database. You have some information in Google Drive, right? You are having your meeting related data, something in Teams, and something else in some other application. Correct? So we now have the data coming in 4 different places, and you want to build an agent which links all of these 4 things. How will you do? You fetch some data, fetch some information here, maybe get some file upload from this, get some information from this, then you connect this also, right? So then you take this drive from this, maybe you have some file access, maybe from the database you want to retrieve something. So you are supposed to fetch everything individually, then come back to ChatGPT, give your use case, give your solution, or give your task. Am I right? This is what we do. Why? Google Drive has its own AI, for example. SQL has its own AI, right? Here, what was this? I think the tool X or Y, anything. They have their own AIs, right? Probably consider Teams and some other interface here. They all have their own AIs, but none of it can interact with it directly. They have AI, they have APIs, everything open, but they cannot interact with it directly. So the moment I come here, I have to seek data from this, from this, from this, from this manually, and then come back and connect to it. Yep. So that was a problem. So then what we did, we added a new layer here called tools or connectors. I think this is the tool calling agent we've already built. Yeah, I'm speaking about the earlier stages before the tools and tool calling came. We built tools so that you define a function and then you get access to all of these tools. All of the data comes in. So you are within your ChatGPT interface itself. You just write the prompt here and then you have all of the data coming in with tools. Correct? So that makes things easier to remove the problem of fragmentation. Tool calling reduces this dependency of what? The dependency of having to fetch context from different softwares to ask or perform any specific task using a LLM. Tool calling was revolutionary. First thing, LLMs revolutionary, then came tool calling, right? Because the moment a tool call option was enabled, you could define anything, connect any tool within Python, or connect any tool with your LLM, with your agent. You had all of the connectors coming in. Yeah, I think we've seen that. Now, the next step here was, right, this is an example of a flight booking, right? The next step here is a unified tool calling option called model context protocol, because here we are looking at the context. So we want to fetch context everywhere. Our main aim is to fetch the context from different tools. So we tried doing that with tools. We were pretty successful. But what happened was, the moment you have 50 plus tools, what will you do? See, like right now, I think previously what we saw, we added a tool for calendar agent, right? We added a tool for sending an email. Before that, when we coded it, I think weather was one tool. Yeah, one more was a calculator tool. So think about it. Like right now, I just had 5 of the tools. Yeah. If I come across 50 such tools, again, that's a problem. I need someone to monitor how those tools work. I need it to be added every single time, all of the tools. Correct? That's again a problem. Yeah. So in terms of the context, I have everything available. Where the problem is, it's with the APIs. Yeah, I think by now we all know what APIs are, how they work, right? Think about it. Every month or every few weeks or every few months or every quarter or something, right? So you have every website updating themselves, right? So all of these are AI-based systems and AI-based websites. So we have all of these websites now updating themselves, right? So making some changes to the UI, updating it, right? Upgrading their own entire systems, their backend, the workflow, the framework. Every day, right? You have developers working on all of these sites, correct? Who are designing, who are modifying, making it look nice. So today I go on to one app. Maybe I visit that app after a few days. It's not the same anymore. Most likely, it is supposed to change and upgrade. Yeah, it keeps upgrading. So in that, what if the API that we take and the call for API, right? Maybe I'm accessing Slack. Yeah. Today's Slack looks how it is. 2 days later, it doesn't look the same. Yeah. They have updated internally, right? Why they wanted to better the user experience. So they have upgraded or updated their interface internally. So in that case, they have updated their API also. What will you do? Think you are using Slack's integration and the API call for the tool or anything within Slack that you're connecting to Slack. Right? Probably take your N8N workflow example. Right? Take your any other example wherein you are coding with LangChain or LangGraph, that example. So when you are coding or when you take this workflow, in how many places will you be changing this API? It's quite difficult because you cannot change it in one place. You have to change it in 50 plus places. Right? So that's quite not so automated. It is more of a manual work. Maybe one little change, and this is just one website that we're speaking about, right? Just Slack. What if Microsoft Teams upgrade their API or their user interface, right? What if any other thing, Gmail upgrades, a calendar, anything they update, even a slight tweak can just give you incorrect responses here, right? So, which is why this next slide, right? So this is a airline booking URL API system. Okay, I've taken it from a reference video. See here, we have Joy Air, Drag Air, and Airgo. Can you see the different ways? The different ways that 3 different flight operators provide their APIs for. It returns the same thing. This is the flight number, flight number, flight number. So here, the variable is different. It is called flight number. Here it is flight num. Here it is flight. And the major information like this dictionary that you have a JSON script, flights, flight info, detailed flights, 3 different things. Look at the URL. Joy Air has their own different API/flights. Drag Air has API/flight list, right? Aerogo has API/list flights. Can you understand the difference? It is different in every single interface. Now, to have a unified interface which fetches us the context, to have something unified, to have something which is common, right? To have something which is easy to access for everyone from one place without going anywhere else, to have something which is commonly accessible, we have MCP. Right? For a model, a context protocol. So we call MCP as model context protocol. Okay. This was just example. You take Joy Air, Drag Air, Aerogo, right? For all of this, they have their own version of APIs. How to get all of these things similar? Because think about it, you are now trying to book a flight. Right? It could be any flight, like a Emirates or a what do you say, a Qatar Air or any flight. Yeah, think about it. You're booking that now. That flight, right? So according to this, it's coming in from Singapore, I think SIN to Bangalore. Yeah? So once you have this, if you want to book this flight, yeah, that flight operator, whichever the flight is, needs to first give access to these different websites like Joy Air, Drac Air, and Aerogo. It needs to give the API access to that. So once they have this, it will have the option, okay, you can book this flight from this location to this location. This is the origin destination. Okay. This is the flight. This is the flight number. So they have given access. Now, when I book it on Joy Air, it should also reflect on every other interface. Right? So just like you take your train booking, Tatkal booking systems, right? Earlier, you could book only on the official Indian Railways app IRCTC. Now you have the option because of APIs, right? You have the option to book it from various sources. You go to MMT, right? You go to Red Rail, you go to Confirm Ticket, you go to IRCTC, you go to so many other options. Anywhere from that, you go to Ixigo, you can book your train tickets. Am I right? All of this is possible. Why? Only because of API. And to standardize those APIs within our agents to get the proper flow and the proper context everywhere together, we use MCPs. Right? Such that you have the model context protocol which standardizes everything. So Anthropic released this thing. Anthropic thought, what if we release a protocol which takes all of the context, standardizes everything, and allows us to connect from that moment at that instant only, such that tomorrow, if the API changes, you again need not have to manually reconnect. You can just update it in one place. That was the thought process. Okay. Understanding why we came to MCP, why we need MCP? Right? Model context protocol sort of looks like this. First thing, it has a client server architecture. So you need to know what is a client, you need to know what is a server. And then there is a MCP client, there is an MCP server, a local data source, right? And then there is a remote service also. Yeah? If you did not understand this, no problem. This is just for you to look at to understand that, okay, you need to have something called as a MCP client, MCP server, client server architecture. Okay. Yeah. So now what happens is I have a host and I have a server. Now the host is something like this, Claude, any IDE, any other tool. A host directly doesn't respond or interact with the server, H and S. It does not directly respond like this. What it does, within the host, there is a client, MCP client that we take. So from this client, we are trying to interact with this, and then we get back the response. By using the MCP protocol, we can access this. Yes, Abdullah. Do you have any questions? Yeah, you can speak or maybe put in the chat also. Anything is fine. Yeah, I could see your hand raised. So now, what exactly happens here? Right, so this is taking into context our N8N workflow. Okay. So you have MCP. The agent, yeah, the AI agent module, which is that, is connected to the model, the LLM, which we have taken it from OpenAI. This has now got a this has now got an option wherein it connects to the tools Yeah, but then it does it via the MCP client and then MCP server. Here we attach all of the tools. Okay. Initially, what we did to this, we added one as model, memory, tool. This is what we had done, right? Now, instead of connecting this tool directly, so here we are connecting this MCP client. From this, it goes to a server. Now, to the server, we are having a lot of tools. We are having a lot of tools. So what it does is an AI agent is going to ask the MCP client, okay, what are the tools available? So then the client is going to connect to the server, fetches the tools which are there. It gives a manifest file saying, okay, here is the entire list. And then it says, okay, I want to run this tool, run the XYZ tool, goes from the client, goes onto the server. Then this says, okay, execute this particular tool. It will execute that tool by checking for the details, gives a response back, and then performs that task. Okay. So what are we doing? We are adding tools here. Put that calendar, put that Gmail, everything here. Now tell me, it's easy, it's good, or is it not really worth using this? Did we need this just by looking at it? See, earlier it was calendar was here, Gmail integration was here. Okay, this is the two things. And our memory was here. Memory, not a problem. This was the model. Now we were connecting calendar and Gmail here. Now we are adding an extra client and a server, and then we're adding all of the tools to give us the access. Now tell me, is it really worth that I take this, that I work with this, that I have the tools here or not in this workflow? Yes, how? I would say it is not worth. I would say it's not worth it. Why do I need to complicate things when I could just directly connect a tool and it was doing the task for me? Yeah. Why do I need to have a client and then connect to a server and then access some of the tools? Not necessary. Why do you want to do that? One moment. Think about it. I'll just put this to chat. Yeah. Okay. Any thoughts? Do you agree with me? In my opinion, I would say this is not required. Why not required? Because I could directly connect from it. Then what is the reason? What is the need for me to add this extra? Right. So the only time where you probably would be using MCP is not in the simple workflow. Right. You don't want it here. Right. Think about it. If I have a requirement wherein I have multiple tools, so many tools, okay, a set of tools here, all in one of these boxes, I will just put all the tools from Gmail. Okay, please ignore my writing that. One from Gmail, right? So the other one from calendar. Okay, all of the tools. Because what all things you can do in Gmail, we had seen yesterday, right? That it is not just sending a message. It is deleting, opening, creating a draft, so many options. Calendar also, it's not just scheduling and invite, shifting, modifying, deleting, updating, all of those options are there. Correct? Yeah. So right now, wait, because of API for what? Sorry, I didn't get. What was this answer for? I missed that. Sorry. I think I asked you a question. I moved on. Didn't wait for you to answer. Okay. So now when you take this in terms of the tools, right? So think about it. I have multiple things within Gmail that I have integrated or connected as a tool. And then I have multiple things within the calendar also that I have integrated and connected here. Okay. So what I can do in this is right now from the MCP client, I fetch the tools and then it gives a manifest file back to the AI agent, and AI agent will share it with the LLM. The LLM model will decide which function to execute based on what? Based on various conditions, based on current query, whatever is the question that is asked. All right. Now, when you take this, LLM has decided, okay, which tool to execute, right? Which function to execute based on the current query, right? Once it's decided, AI agent will ask this client to execute that particular action. Client will make a request to the server will execute the function, give back the response, right? So we understood this entire flow. Okay. Now, here you can see within the MCP server, right, what all things are available. Right? So I'll just take you to this explanation first. Yeah. So I have a workflow which has all of these things like the calendar, create event, delete event, get event, update the event. So for all of that, what we could do is instead of directly connecting it to this, right, we can send it to a MCP server. Yeah. We can send it to a MCP server. Let's think about it. Now I connect this entire thing here. Instead of connecting it to the tool here, I connect it to a server. And instead, how the connection looks like now? Right? How the connection looks like. I have the entire, what do you say, tools of calendar or Gmail here. It is connected to the server. 4 or 5 options, not just one option. 4 or 5 options, whatever are there, it is connected here. And then the next time, wherever I have to connect the tool, I am now connecting the MCP client. Okay. So there need not be a connection from the MCP client to the MCP server. I need not even put it on the same workflow. I'll probably show it to you on N8 how it looks like. Okay. We won't be setting up or running that flow completely, but I'll show you how the setup looks like. So for this in the tool, you can just connect a MCP client, right? And then here you can have a separate MCP server. To the server, we can be adding all of the calendar or Gmail based tool. That's what we do. Okay. Now, once we have this, how do you communicate? See, we have the N8 workflow right here. We have the N8 workflow. We put the agent and then we put all of these things. Your MCP server and all of these tools need not even be in the same workflow. Doesn't matter. Yeah, it still works. Why? Because here, when you configure the MCP client, you just have to put one URL which is connecting your MCP server. So there'll be a URL here that you need to go ahead and put it in the MCP server option. Which database is good? Either MongoDB or MySQL or Oracle for AI agent API. Okay. MongoDB is very commonly used. I don't think people use MySQL for your databases in these kind of automations. People use MongoDB a lot. Oracle, yes, there are a lot of other options also. Pinecone is a very good option that you could probably use. Yeah. Or people also use Redis cache, I think from AWS you get. But yeah, MongoDB is very commonly used. People use MongoDB a lot. I've seen that as the example for databases being used. Okay. Yeah. Are we clear with this? What is MCP? What is the client? What is the MCP server? And how the differentiation is? This is clear. Understood the need for MCP also by now? What all things we are supposed to do? Yeah. See, your URL to connect is taken from MCP server. Here there will be one URL. You take that URL, you are going to paste this here. That will make sure your access to the server will be shown. Okay, now this is speaking from a N8N based workflow. Otherwise, you have to code down everything, yeah, which is again the standard. But in this, there is a MCP client which expects a server URL or a server endpoint. Okay. So now when you just take this is your MCP. I'll just switch over to a different set of slides here. Okay, I will just like 2 minutes. Just wait. Just give me 2 minutes. We'll continue. Yeah. Yeah. I'm back. Yeah, I'm back. I wasn't speaking. Wasn't speaking. I had asked you guys for 2 minutes. 1 minute. Now I'm back. I will share my screen. No, sorry, I wasn't speaking for the last 2 minutes, which is why you couldn't hear me. I informed and went, right? Okay, sharing a different set of slides now, wherein we'll try to understand a little bit more about MCP and A2A. Okay. Yeah. So we got a little overview about what MCP does, what it is. Yes. Yeah, we didn't actually try defining it. Yeah, but then we understood a little bit why the need for MCP came. That part is clear. Everyone has understood that. Why the need for MCP arose? Why did it rise? And what is the things which are included? We have a server, we have a client. Yeah, hope I'm audible now. Okay. All right. I'm quickly going to head over to the first article that Anthropic had released when they sort of introduced model context protocol. Let me switch to that. See, this was their article, right? It's been quite some time now that MCP was introduced. It is now the industry standard. People use MCP for all of the things, right? For any kind of interaction, for any kind of connection in the agent, people use MCPs now. See, on 25th November 2024, right? So they released MCP as a new standard for connecting AI assistants to the systems. Yeah, it could be any kind of repository, any kind of environment, such that it gets much more relevant responses. So the focus here was context and context only. Yeah. See, we'll just read this. This is a very interesting, what do you say, blog or the release information that they had put, right? Which is why I directly came to this. I did not want to add this in the slides. I thought I'll come here only to explain about this. A few things. It's not too huge. And so just a few steps are mentioned here. This was their official release article from Anthropic. Yeah, I could have added this in the slides, but I thought I'll give you the documentation for actual reference. See, assistants, right? Your AI assistants, right? Basically, they are your models and LLM capabilities. Now, what is happening is that you take 1.5 years ago now. This was in November 2024, right? Industry invested heavily in model capabilities, so they get very good responses. Rapid advances are there. So they have reasoning systems. Very interesting quality has come. So Claude was released. Anthropic, yeah. Then OpenAI released ChatGPT. I think at that time it was 4.0 or 5, which started to come into picture. 4.0, I think. Now, at that time, what happened was most sophisticated or the best models in the industry were also having a constraint by their isolation from data because it had those legacy systems. Every new data source required its own custom implementation. Correct? Yeah. Now think about it. I'll give you an example of what MCP did, but there was another thing that we did that we have already studied. You all remember LangChain, right? We have used LangChain. What did LangChain do? What did LangChain as a tool do, as a framework do? Pretty much very similar things it was doing. You had the models, you had all of the LLM models, but from a developer perspective, if you wanted to build using any of those LLM models, did you have any interface that you could build on? Any common interface? Say you have the LLM, you have Python, you have all of the access. Still, you do not have a platform to build it. So what did LangChain framework do? Right? I would say it addressed a similar issue because every LLM that you wanted to integrate, it was very difficult. Just by using Python, if I had to import OpenAI and connect, it would have a completely different API, different option to call. Then if I wanted to use some LLM like from Claude, Anthropic, if I wanted to take that, it would be completely different. Yeah. Maybe if I wanted to connect something from Gemini, it would be completely different. Yeah. So you can just see here, Claude API. Right? Maybe if I use a Claude API with Python, right? Maybe something I want to build with Claude. It would have a completely different API interface than when I compare this with OpenAI. See, this is import Anthropic. Client is Anthropic, message, client.message.create, model, max token, message, right? So this is now import Anthropic. Yeah. Then I need the API key, I need the tokens, everything. This is the direct API reference. Correct? Now see here. It needs an SDK, right? A software development kit that is required. Same thing if I go to OpenAI and its API. Now the key, the actual building API, right? So if I just go to that API platform and how I can just use the API platform. So they had their own different versions. Explore the API. They had their own API call, their own different versions. Everything was completely custom. I have a custom environment if I want to integrate this with Python. So see here. I think agent building from here somewhere. Look, for me to even just understand what platform is there, where do I need to use it from, right? What is the code? Takes so much time just for me to search. Yeah. Okay. Still did not get where exactly the building or the coding option is, right? So I have to go in depth and then search for that, okay? From a developer perspective. Yep. See here, app SDK, what are the models, documentation, everything. I have to go search for all of these things because it again has put it in this. Yeah. See, you have the apps SDK, you have the API and the API platform. Okay. Now you see, this is where you found the code. From OpenAI, import OpenAI client, client responses create, and then model input, and then this is the code. So I have to install something else. Again, component. I have to install something else for Claude, something else for Gemini. Everywhere has its own version. Okay. What did LangChain do? It standardized everything. Right. When we went to LangChain Python integrations, right? So it just gave us the option that okay, you install LangChain, all of these providers we are giving access to within our LangChain interface. So I said, come to us, right? We have a very sophisticated, we have a very much standardized interface for all of them, right? So just make sure we can use all of these integrations here itself. So it's standardized. That is what MCP is doing. Yeah. The most of its sophisticated models to avoid those constraints, right, of the own custom implementations, right? MCP addressed the challenge to give a universal open standard for connecting AI systems. So you have an AI system to connect with the data source, every one of those issues are removed. So whatever fragmented integrations were there, right? So we saw, right, one slide about fragmented data. That part is also removed. All of those are removed with just one common protocol. What is the result? You have a very reliable, simple AI system that you can access, use a server client model, access this, work with it only. Okay, now we'll just see what exactly the definition is. It's an open standard. MCP is an open standard which enables developers to build secure two-way connections between their data sources and AI-powered tools. This, I think we understand, whatever is our source and the AI agent or the tool. Yeah. So architecture in this is developers can expose their data through MCP servers, or they can build AI applications, which is like MCP clients that connects to these servers. So direct exposures through the servers can be there, or via the MCP clients also, which connects to these servers will also be there. That is the initial thing that they have released. Yeah. Now here you can see the model context protocol has An SDK, it has got a local MCP server support that is very specific to Cloud desktop apps only, and an open source repository for MCP servers. Okay. Now see, earlier when they released 3.5 Sonnet allowed to build MCP server implementations, very easy for organizations and individuals to connect their important data sets with a range of AI powered tools. Okay, fine. I think this much I wanted to read out. Did we understand what exactly MCP protocol is and why did we use that? Rest all are some information about what all things to do. Yeah. Yeah. With testing MCP connectors, right? So that we can see. So earlier it was mostly just to connect with the Cloud apps, right? Pre-built MCP servers you can install or you can build with Cloud desktop app. Yeah. So you can build your own MCP server as well. There is a quick start guide or a link also, which is that. MCP might be heavy as it has all the interfaces to connect server, client, and costly. Accuracy and performance wise, it might be overwhelming. Not necessarily, right? Like I said, think of it as like LangChain interface, right? Until you are calling it or until you are importing some part of it, you need not have all the things included in that. In LangChain, you wanted to use LangChain Grok, you only installed and imported LangChain Grok. You did not bother about anything else. It's all there. They have a package available. They have their entire storage available. They have their entire server and client, everything ready. Yeah. But until you need it, they don't necessarily give it to you. They've defined everything and kept it's there. But until you don't need it, you won't even be using, right? Yes. See here. We understood what is MCP. Look, I'll show you what all things it has. MCP has a standardized protocol. What kind of protocol? Chat interface, IDE, all the other AI based applications, and it can connect to the data sources, your database, your Git or Git based tools, or Slack or Maps, that kind of tools. It connects everything, right? Which is why I said we'll go to that slide. Yeah, the example about USB-C, exactly that thing is mentioned here also. MCP is like a USB port for AI agents, right? One more example. Yeah, to understand it is put on their official documentation just now, which we saw, right? Until recently, we all used to use a Type B connector for charging our phones. Yeah. Android used to use a Type B connector. A laptop used to have a round connector. Yeah. And then probably a MacBook or an iPhone used to have a lightning connector. Correct? So we used to use three different things to charge our phones and devices, laptops. Yeah. What happened recently? A Type C USB port came into existence. Yeah. Then what happened? A standardization. iPhone removed their lightning connector to create a Type C connector. Mac removed their lightning connector to create a Type C connector. Now, I can take my phone, I can use a Mac charger, I can use a iPhone charger, I can use a phone charger. I can use that same charger for my Mac, for my laptop, for my phone, for my iPhone, anything. It's all the same. Now, how much of power and watts and its capability, that's a different story. Yeah, but it can be connected, it can be charged, right? I take my earphones or my earpod, a wireless pods, I can charge with that, right? I take a watch. If I want to charge my watch, I can charge with the same Type C connector, right? I take a power bank, I can charge with that, right? Maybe I take my smart glasses, I can charge it with that. Everything has a standardized USB-C connector. Isn't that helpful for us now? That USB Type C, anywhere I can just use probably one charger and connect and charge everything now. Yeah. LangChain does not have server client and kind of standardized protocol. LangChain has a package, right? It has got all of the tools available in a similar interface. That's all. No, it does not have a server client architecture like how we have mentioned explicitly in here, right? So it says, okay, this is a package. You want this, we can import that for you. Yeah, that's what LangChain says. We just have it like a package. I was just giving you an example that it has all of the options for developers just using one framework or using one library. They can use any of the chat models. Right? Take Na10 for that example. Na10 allows you to connect no matter what LLM model you want. Na10 says, okay, get your LLM models API, come to Na10, use it here. I have no problem. Yeah. In a way, that is also a standardized option. So it's saying get all of your own tools, connect with Anytime here. I'm giving you a platform to work on. Yeah, I was just saying LangChain from that perspective. It is giving you all of the options in one place. Okay. Yeah. Interportability in terms of what? Yeah, you can exchange data, you can use your tools. Yeah, you have the agent to agent communications also for that. AI model, if I want to connect with another AI model, it can interact. Tool, if I want to connect with one AI model, tool with another AI model, that also it can do. So, which is why we have the next thing, which is agent to agent communication, A2A. Yeah. MCP is one level where you have everything standardized. Then you have A2A also, which comes. Okay. Now, we understood that MCP is like a USB port, a Type C port, where any device plugs in using the same interface. For everything, it doesn't need a separate software or a separate driver. Earlier, what we used to do, we install one device, one driver, another device, another driver, another device, another driver. Here, you don't need. You have one driver, every device connects through that. This also, I think you all have faced if you have used computers. Different device that you connect has its own driver that you needed. Yeah. Now, you have everything standardized, you don't need that. Okay. A universal way. Fine. So MCP has an open source standard. So anyone can utilize it and agent can call tools and receive results. So two-way communication. Yep. You can connect with tools. Tools can respond back to the agent. So it has a proper two-way communication interface, which is available with MCP. Okay. Like I told you, there are three things in the MCP architecture. Within a host, there is a client. Yep. This client interacts with the server. Sort of, we have discussed this already, right? Taking from an N8N perspective, because that was easier for us to understand previously, right? Sort of, we have seen this. This is the host, the AI agent. Inside the AI agent, I have an MCP client that will connect to the MCP server. Server will have all of the tools attached to it. So anytime my host wants to interact with the tools, it can go via the client, request to the server. Server will give access, and according to that, it will run and execute, give the response, or perform the task. Yeah. Now, the advantage with having a host in here is that it can obviously have multiple MCP clients. Yeah. Or maybe one client connect to multiple servers. That is also that. One host can connect to multiple MCP servers simultaneously. Each server exposing different tools. Maybe server 1 has only calendar based tool. Server 2 has only Gmail based tool. Server 3 has only Slack based tool. Server 4 has maybe only Outlook based tools. So you can take the host and connect to every other server which is there. Because it's not necessary that one server will have all of the different types of tools. That is also not required. It can go anywhere and then it can change. Okay. So now we have understood all the LLMs can securely connect to the external tools by using MCP, right? And MCP's key components or architecture wise, it is that it has a main host, which is the main application or the chat interface or the agent or the LLM, your app, anything. That is the host. Within the host, there is a small component called a client, which manages the connection to the external server. Then the server can be anywhere. So the MCP server is, like I told you, it might be an independent program, an independent workflow on its own, which just connects to your databases, to the APIs, to the tools, to the data, to your local files, everywhere. So all of that via just a endpoint URL, it will be connected from here to here. Then whichever my host says access, it will access and then give you the responses. Okay. So integration is made very, very easy. Yeah. I think now we know about what tool is. Integration wise, I'll tell you what are the options. Tool, I think we have understood. A function, right? Within add tool, there is a def function that we can take. It will give us a result. We have seen previously send email, search the web, get the weather. All of that is a tool based example. We've also defined tools with LangChain earlier. Yeah. Now, the same tools are going to be connected to a MCP server. Now, in terms of the integration and the integration problem or the bottleneck which was there. So we have an integration pattern that will work. Yeah. Instead of actually building any custom kind of connections between every single AI model, right? So you have integration patterns. MCP acts as a universal bridge, right? So you have a local server, a remote server, or an enterprise integration pattern, which you can connect to different types of tools. Three different types of tools. You can connect to a file system to the server, local database to the server, cloud API to the server, or any kind of tool like Slack, SAP, Jira, also to the MCP server. Okay. So the flow is given below. Agent asks for tools. MCP lists the tools. Agent picks a tool. MCP calls the tool, and results are returned to the agent or tasks is performed by the agent. Okay. Are we clear with this? Okay. Now, why is MCP such a big deal? Right? It was because, first thing, we understood developers, they had to build multiple custom integrations for every AI model, every external system. Right? Example, if one backend API gets updated, that custom code would break. Yeah. Again, they had to come back and then work. Yeah. Any agent. So I've built an AI agent. I connect an interface. It works fine. Okay. If the backend API gets updated, then again it is not fine. Again, I have to update. Again, I have to go change that integration problem. The API or the external system which I connect, again, I have to come back and change. So maybe every month, like I said, if it updates, it's a huge problem. I cannot go to 100 different tools and 100 different integrations and keep doing it. MCP reduces that workload. Okay. Okay. Now we'll just go back to that documentation page. Yeah. Here, there are so many things, right? Whatever I've actually explained, right? It's all mentioned here. See, what can MCP enable? Agents can access your calendar, Notion, personalized AI assistant. Yeah, Cloud Code can generate an entire web app using a Figma design. Enterprise chatbots can connect to multiple databases across an organization, such that you can empower users to analyze data using chat. Right. So MCP at different levels, how does it help? Developers, reduces development time, complexity, interaction. You don't have to build again and again. Yeah, if the link breaks. Right. For an AI application or agent, it provides access for data sources. And you need not define 100 tools. Yeah, think about it. If I have 10 tools that I want to define and connect to three different agents, the same 10 tools, I need not define again and again and again. I can just use an MCP server. And then I can choose, okay, this is the MCP server, already has 10 tools. I can define it within this, how many ever times. So for example, think about it. 1 minute. Yeah. Think that I have agent 1. Yeah, think I have agent 2. Now for me, in the agent 1, I want to connect 8 tools. And in the agent 2, I want to connect 7 tools. I have total how many tools? 10 tools. Okay. Any tool. You can take any kind of integration. I have 10. Out of that, I need 7. So what is a better option is when I have multiple agents, okay? That's when it actually has a proper use case when you take MCP. So when I have agent 1, agent 2, out of this 10, I want 7. See, if I had connected 7 tools separately here, I have to put those 7 here. Then the 8 tools separately here, I have to put the 8 tools here. Instead, what I do, I don't define it like this. I define 10 tools which are there. Okay. I connect this to a MCP server. Like I told you earlier, I connect this to a MCP server. Yeah. Now from this MCP server, here I am now just taking the client. I'm probably connecting the client here also. Yeah. So this client will now interact with the server. I'm making sure this client is authenticated with this server. And once you authenticate this, it is asking out of this 10, what all tools you want? All 10, 1, 2, 3, 4. I say I want these 7. I can just connect these 7 and then it's here. Out of this here also for the server, I'm saying out of this 10, I want 8. Which 8 you choose and then you get access here. Okay. So from an end user perspective also, MCP gives you more capable AI based applications or agents. Okay. Now, okay. If you want to build, you can build 3 things like I told you. MCP server to expose your data, MCP client to develop applications which connect to the servers. Based on all of that, you can build a MCP app also. Okay. This is for a server. Okay. I think we'll go back. Wait. This is in the about part. It's a start building. We can just go see that later. Next is the architecture. Then I have the servers. Okay. So developing with MCP. Right. So you actually have, this is proper coding environment example, which is given here. Okay. To build an MCP server. So here it is, build a simple MCP weather server and connect it to the host cloud for desktop. Okay. See, I'll just walk you through this. Let us not do this, but I'll walk you through to understand what exactly you do. We'll build a server that exposes 2 tools, get alerts, get forecast, again based on weather. Okay. You connect the server to a MCP host. Host is what? Your LLM or the app. This is Claude for desktop. So they have the Claude desktop app. On that, we have to connect. Yeah, like I told you, host, client, server are the 3 things that you need to have. Okay. So I think they have a complete code with Python in GitHub that they have given. That we need not access and see the entire thing here, but there is a quick start, a Python-based code, weather.py that you weather.py that you can just see. Okay. So you have to connect Python with the LLMs. Once the code is written, right? Example, let's you connect, get a request. Yeah, you need to have certain what do you say, environment and some requirements that you need to set up. Yeah, then you build the MCP server on top of the weather.py, right? So you are then going to import a fast MCP, initialize the MCP server. You have the API, the agent, yeah, and then you can just create and maintain your MCP tool. Now it has a helper function, right? If you want the data from the service, weather API, right, from that. So you see here, same like the tool that we had defined earlier, a function is defined, make a request to the API with proper error handling, right? So you're making a request and then you're saying format an alert, yeah, based on that. Then make sure that the tool execution is going to happen. So here again, it needs the API, just like how we had seen the weather API. I think we had used some other website, WeatherState. Same way, you have a function that you define, you have a tool, but this time the tool is called as MCP.tool. We had defined earlier with LangChain just tool. Now it is a MCP.tool because we are using a MCP interface. And again, define the same tool. You see another tool for get forecast. First one was for a get alert. Yeah. Second one is for a get forecast. The MCP tool created. Then run it on the server, and then you should get your response. So you have a server created and ready. So you start, it will listen to the messages from the host. You can ask questions, you can ask for it to connect. So you test your server with Claude, right? So first you need that Claude desktop app. Take the server, run that file, right? Once you run that file, it will ask you for the questions, right? So you can see here in the web search or in the connectors, actually, you have one extra thing called as a weather that you just built in this. So you take that, you ask a question, right? And then it should respond according to that. So it is using that only. It is using that connector only. So you pretty much did what? Used created your own MCP server, created a tool within that, and then that tool you are asking, you're using Claude to access that and give the answers. This is using Claude only, okay? Same way you want a specific client to connect to your MCP server, you can do that as well. I think for that also the interface is shown here. Yeah. You can see how to build a LLM powered chatbot client that connects to the MCP server. Also, you can build, you can have a proper connection. Yeah, set up your Anthropic's API key, create a file, load the interface, right? Make sure you have a server connection established. See, this is the important thing. You need to be able to connect to the MCP server. So here for connect to server, somewhere the endpoint or the path should be initialized and connected. Yeah. So I think this is the server script path. So you need that path, you need the command to connect. Once connection is done, process the query, whatever question is there, use the LLM, try to answer that question, right? Then you'll have a chatbot interface that is created. After this, I think is simple. Whatever is the question that is asked, it will respond according to that. Okay, then you can run the client. So I think code wise, if you see, if you had noticed previously also, we have defined the tool. Here it is MCP.tool. Yeah. You can connect to local MCP server, remote MCP server, right? You can build your own MCP server, right? You can build a client, you can connect with the client. There is a proper SDK also available. Developer wise, there's something called MCP inspector also. Okay, this is all about MCP, what you needed to understand. Like I said, I'll show you that on Na10, how it looks, how we can arrange our tools as well. See, this is the SDK and the example server here. Okay. So you all have the link. Feel free, go and explore that. Okay. We good with this? Shall we just go to N8N a little bit? Just so that I show you how it is getting arranged. Now for all of the integrations, the first time that we set up, we need a little bit of time. But I'm going to show you how the MCP looks like, how it is connected. Just a minute. Okay, now that this is here, I'm just going to create a copy of this, right? And I'll call this as MCP demo. Okay, so let me just take it like MCP demo sample. Yeah. Now, let me just do duplicate. And I have another workflow. In this, we'll just edit a little bit and see. Okay, in Agentic, agents were deciding which tools. Yeah, so here in MCP is coming in between. So agent is this is asking MCP server, it gets response and decides, picks again and again makes the calls. Okay, no human in the loop. Now see, Shivjyoti, that is something that we can add additionally. If you want it to take a request and then respond according to that, then it'll work. Otherwise, no human in the loop. Because there, if you want a level of approval, you can do. See, that is why I think here in the slides, in the types of agents actually, we have different types of agents which are there. Right? You have some agents which only gives you responses. You have some agents which does the work by asking approvals at every level. You have one agent which autonomously does everything just by your question. There are three different types of agents also. You can expect only answers from it. You can expect it to do the automation automatically. You can expect it to do the automation based on your approvals. Two different things. Okay. Yeah. So here, when you take an agent, right? So you can add a MCP client as well as an MCP server in this. Yeah. So there is an MCP server trigger. Expose anything tools. Can you see this URL? And then there is a authentication also. There is a test URL. There is a production URL. Right. But then, like I said, there is a test URL. Yeah. Initially, all of the things were connected to. Before you take this, remove this. So let me just arrange it here. Okay. I have it like this. Here, here, here. Yeah. Why do we have this error in this? I don't know. We had seen this yesterday, right? Okay. Right. Let me take an example. Calendar. Calendar has 2, 3, 4 things. Yeah. Google Calendar tool. Right. Maybe this time I'm not saying create. Right. I am saying retrieve. Yep. I don't know. Anything. Event ID. Yeah. Anything. But just I want a calendar based tool here. That's all. Doesn't matter what it does. Okay. I had this. For example, I have the 3 tools right now. So what I could do here is yeah, what I could do here is I can take a MCP client and I can take a MCP server trigger. Take MCP, take a server trigger, yeah, which will expose the tools to this. And then I can connect all of the tools, remove it from the AI agent directly, and we move them all to the MCP server trigger and instead replace that with the tools. So let me come here. I'm not changing anything yet. So I have a trigger. Scroll down. I have a trigger. This connection can go here. This link can break. That's okay. Because then we are connecting this to this. And we are breaking this link. Getting it? This tool, connect it here. Connect this, break this link. So not connecting to a tool anywhere here. So all of these are going to the MCP server trigger. Now we need a way to allow this AI agent to talk to this server. That is where MCP client comes in. So in this, I had a MCP client. Connect tools from an MCP server. So this expects an endpoint. That's very important. Because without that, there is no URL or there is no connection. Yeah. So this expects an endpoint. So I go here, I have the endpoint. Yeah, the MCP URL. I connect to this. There you go. Right? It is the endpoint which is available in here. So once you have this as the endpoint, your MCP client is also initialized. Okay. Then you get tools to include all selected or all of them except the selected tools. Okay. Yeah, attendance link will be shared post 4:30 p.m. Sushmita or the team will be sharing it with you. Okay. Now you see, do you want all of the tools? How many tools are there? I think 3 or 4. I can take all. You want selected tools, which ones to select? Right? You get the option here. First, you need to connect. Right? From that MCP server to this, we need to have a connection. Right? Authentication, as of now, none. Yeah, I think server transport, not necessary. Yeah. Yeah, okay. It says set up credentials. We probably need to have the credentials that we initialize this as well as this. Yeah. In this also authentication, none. So here, what is configured for the Gmail? I think credentials are not connected for the meeting invite also. So these credentials, maybe it is expecting me to set up, right? So all of these are defined. Tool description, message, send. Yeah, this is all okay. Correctly defined, right? Let me just check here. Default parameters, default reminders. Yeah, everything is ready and set now. Now you can see this is also set. So I go to OpenAI, that error also, let us just check what is happening. We are using the free credits, right? So response API, everything is again configured, right? Now that all of these things are configured as well, right? I can just go to the MCP client. Refresh. Maybe we have to set up the authentication and everything also. Okay. So if I just say all tools, it just includes and executes with all of the tools that are available there. Okay. So like this, we can have a MCP server as well as a MCP client that you can set up, that you can integrate with your workflows. Let me do one thing. Description, share, save. Okay. Yeah. So maybe if I execute this as the workflow, workflow. So all of these things will be available there. Right. Do I have any option to save this as a workflow? I think it gets auto saved. But just checking. Anywhere is there any separate option to save this? Tidy up. Okay. Not an issue. That's fine. Yeah. Okay. Now we have the MCP client and we have the MCP server, right? All of that things set up. Okay. So in fact, if we want, we can just go ahead and test this entire workflow as well. Let me just execute and see if the workflow works. I don't know. I've just randomly connected. These things are not even set up, but let's see. May or okay, we'll see. Waiting for you to create an event in a MCP server is what it says. And so just try to execute that as a workflow. Okay. So this is what is the integration pattern. This is how it looks like. Yeah, you should have the attendance or the feedback form in the chat, please. You can have a look. Okay. Let me just tell here. Okay, I'm just writing up or setting up a prompt. Okay. Starting with the workflow and the execution. Run this. Okay. We won't take the memory as of now. That's okay. I'm just trying to reset the chat sessions. Okay. This workflow executed in here. Now for the MCP server, right? So it needs a event as well. Yeah. Listening for a test event. Go to the MCP server and then create a event. Okay. So it sort of needs a event as well. So if you probably take this, it should then access the MCP client also. Yeah. So then, yeah, I've just stopped it. and I have interrupted that execution. Okay. But this is how the flow looks like. So you could put this completely in a different set, right? And then you can ask it to execute or connect with the client. Now here with the memory, you can definitely add this memory. You can add any other memory also. Like I told you, MongoDB is one of the most commonly used memory option for database other than the simple memory. If you're looking to integrate, right, use MongoDB. Okay. Yeah. So clear with this? We can execute the same thing from a coding perspective as well. So this is just a workflow. Like I told you, I'll just arrange these things and show you that this is how we connect from here to here. Instead of directly connecting the tools here, we use a server trigger and then we connect it with the client. Server to client, we have a endpoint that we are going to set or connect. Yeah. Probably we have to set the MCP credentials as well, right? I do not have the MCP or the cloud yet, right? I have to set the credentials, connect to MCP, right? So that will also require like a server URL that we need. Do I have a server URL? Let me just see. Close. This is this. Let me just put this and see if it connects. Yeah, this will not. Okay, OAuth will not authorize because we need a proper API call for that also for the MCP. For the MCP server, we have not created any separate MCP server as such. Correct? Because it needs that MCP server, it needs a proper credential that needs authentication. Now, we did not have that. Right? So this is just a sample to show. Like here I showed you in the documentation, right? You need to have a server that is created. So there should be a credential that matches that server. Then we can work with it. Okay. So this is just a sample of how it looks like. Okay. So once you have that authentication, then you can access, you will know what are all the tools. As of now, all the tools are accessed. Okay. See, could not connect to your MCP server is what is the thing here. Because this MCP server, right, whatever we had here, right, it needs some data. It needs an event that you have to trigger, and then it needs to receive that data from here. Should connect to the tools. Okay. But here you have the URLs that you could just copy. See, if you want, you can say retry on fail also. How many times of retries that you want, you can get those things as well here. Right now, maybe the meeting invite, which was there previously, we used this one, right? This says that it does not have any input, which is connected. So it doesn't know from where to respond. So it needs some input in here, right? So it needs to have an access coming in from this. Now to send an email also, it needs a input mapping, which is supposed to be that. Okay, because here we have defined that to define automatically by the model, right? So I can remove this. I can put a fixed saying that you send an email to a so-and-so email itself, not an issue. Right? I can just say send that, send hello, welcome. That can be one step to send an email. For execution, it will load and it will give you the output. It will execute that node, and then I should receive, I should have the email which is sent according to that also. Okay, because here it says again, waiting for you to create an event in the server. So like that, we need the credentials that you need to authenticate. Okay. So this was all about MCP that we need to understand. Any questions so far? This is how you are exposing your tools through MCP. Now coming to the last part of it. Right? What is the last part of this It's your agent to agent interactions. Yeah, A2A. What is A2A? Screen share, wait. Yeah, exposing tools we saw. Now we'll try to understand the next step, which is the agent to agent communication or agent to agent protocol. Okay. Now, a short while after Anthropic released MCP, right? Google, right? Google released one more open standard to enable AI agents to communicate with each other in April 2025. The MCP came in November 2024. Right after that, Google in April 2025 decided that they are going to announce or release a agent to agent protocol in A2A. Okay, they call this as A2A. Right, what is A2A now? What does A2A do? It's a protocol which will allow AI agents to communicate with each other. Agent to agent interaction, agent to agent communication, wherein it can basically ask any questions, securely exchange any kind of information, right? Discover what are the capabilities of the other agent. Previous example that we took of a flight agent, consider there is also another agent for booking hotels. So the flight agent, for example, starts a A2A communication and asks, what can you do to the hotel agent? Hotel agent says, I can search and book hotels. So then this says, here's a task for you. Search for the best hotels in London. I shall search hotels and get back. Here is a list of best hotels. It gives a list here. Yeah. Now this is a protocol which was developed by and released by Google. Google's developers actually had this. Okay. Now, this is on April 2025. So when you take agent to agent as a protocol, right, it also has the contributions and connect with a lot of other interfaces like Atlassian, LangChain. Right? So they also had this communication and the integration with A2A. Yeah, it's a collaborative effort for the A2A framework, wherein it is something which complements Anthropic's MCP. Yeah. The primary thing about what an A2A protocol does is that it empowers developers to build agents which are capable of connecting with other agents using the A2A protocol. What is the advantage of this? It will offer users the flexibility to combine agents from various providers. So I could have one agent that I built by using Anthropic, another agent by using OpenAI, like that. So basically, businesses benefit from a standardized method, right? Maybe this agent is from a completely different underlying architecture. This also has a completely different underlying architecture. But because of A2A communication, it establishes a communication at a standard level, at a standardized method. Okay, such that you can manage the agent across diverse platforms. Now, this agent-to-agent protocol was built on existing standards, like examples here, underlying transport, JSON, RPC over HTTPS, same thing, and server-sent events, SSE. So any kind of existing IT stack which is there, it was built on top of that itself. And obviously, enterprise-grade security and authentication was also available here. Okay. Now, there's one more thing that an A2A agent can actually do. Or A2A protocol, so that you can actually be seen. So you have one remote agent and you have one client agent. Wait, let me take you to the documentation page itself. Right, it's anyways explained on that. Okay, this is the Google developers code link for the A2A. Okay, April 9th, 2025, they had released this. Yeah, how A2A works. You have a remote agent, you have a client agent. A2A facilitates the communication between a client and a remote agent, first thing. And then once it has established this relationship, right, it can probably take like, okay, the client agent will formulate and communicate the task. Remote agent will act according to those tasks such that it can give the proper information. So this interaction which is there, it will have capability discovery. Agent can advertise their capabilities using their agent card. It always sends data in the JSON format. Please note that. So agent will identify what task, how it can communicate, right? Then task management and state management will be there. Okay. So this is another capability wherein task object, it can be completed immediately, or the communication can be there between the agents. Yeah, wait, I think it's written below. Yeah, see here, you should have the task management. Task can be completed immediately, or for wrong learning task, each of the agents can communicate to stay in sync with each other. Yeah, on the latest status of completing one particular task. Okay, they can also collaborate and they can share user experience and negotiate. Yeah, negotiate the correct format for the user's capabilities, right? It can actually give you here. So they've given a example also of this video. I would like you to view this. Let us see. Yeah. So see here a file uploaded in a Google agent space. I'm hiring for a staff software engineer. Attached is the job description. Can you help me fill the role? Okay, is the question, right? Now, capability discovery. Initiating agent protocol to discover agent capable of candidate sourcing. So it is searching for what kind of agent. And then based on the available agents in the registry, it found out that there is a sourcing agent. Yeah. So what this main agent did, the agent space, this is your main agent. This agent is looking through and then searching, is there any other agent which is capable of doing this task? Capability discovery. Okay. So then what happened? It found a sourcing agent. Sourcing candidates for open positions. So it found that, and then what it did, I'm happy to help with the sourcing of candidates for software engineering role. I couldn't find information. Is there a preference for candidates? Right, with collaboration and some details. So just mention that, okay, it's a global position. So is there a preference for candidates with a specific time zone range to optimize team collaboration? So it is saying that client and agent must support dynamic interaction. Agent will request clarifications, informations from clients or users. After all of these things, so you say global position, but ideally within plus or minus 3 hours of US specific time. Okay. Based on that, I need to search for candidates which fill the job descriptions with a preference with the time zone preferences. I can set the top candidate as plain text, or I can render them as UX friendly cards via iframe embedding. Using agent protocol to negotiate if client supports iframes. Client does support, let's surface as UX. So it gives you a UX. So user experience negotiation is also happening, right? The tags and how it is supposed to inform. If there was no iframe supported, it would not have given this. It would have given the information of these profiles. It just text back to you. So what it is doing, it is trying to access and then it is trying to tell, okay, this is what it is. Based on that, proceed. Yeah. Please reach out to schedule interviews with the top candidates. So it is creating a plan for that also. Now maybe it will also look for agent which can schedule those interviews as well. Now after some time, you can see here, it has an update. So it will retrieve the update. These are 3 candidates who passed the interview and are pending a background check. Initiate the background check, right? It is now looking for what you can see, based on my agent registry, I have access to 3 background checking agents. So for background check, there is another agent. So it is interacting with that agent, and then it is asking that agent to do the work. So that agent is performing a background check. Okay. Then it is giving results. Successfully initiated a background check. I failed to do for these two because they seem based out of US, which is outside the scope for this particular background agent. Yeah. So a main agent accessing another remote agent. See here. Can you run background check for non-US candidates? It has another agent which is there, international background agent. Yeah. It connected to that agent via A2A. Now it is asking that agent to perform the task, does the task, done, and then once it is ready, it will give you. So it is updating you about the state management, task and state management. Getting it? Understanding how the protocol works, understanding how the agent to agent communication works in this. Candidate sourcing is one example of A2A. Yeah, that's what your A2A protocol or agent to agent communication is actually doing here. So we'll go back. They have their own website at A2A protocol, right? Wherein we can get the entire code and integrations as well as to how we can communicate. Yeah, see here. Build with agent development kit, MCP, communicate with agent to agent to remote agents. Right. So how you want to continue, how you want to connect, it's all mentioned here. There is a tutorial, right? I think this introduction to agent, we have just seen. Yeah. Now, how it works with MCP, right? They complement each other. It is never A2A versus what do you say, MCP. And it is always how to use both of these things together. So ultimately, what we need multiple agents which are defined, right? So you can define agents using any of those, right? But then see, one of them is a client agent, the other one is a remote agent, and then using MCP, a remote tool is there. Correct? MCP does not interact with agents. MCP interacts with tools only. That is one primary difference that you need to know. See here, the mention MCP and A2A are not competitors, they're highly complementary. They solve two different types of problems and designed to work together. MCP is for agent to tool communication. This is for agent to agent communication. Standardizes how agent connects to its tools, APIs, and resources. Agent to agent, independent agents which connect each other, share results, delegate tasks, discover, right? All of those 4 features which we discussed. It allows us to connect and interact with each other. Yeah. Okay. So using A2A, you don't have a toolkit like LangGraph or LangChain. Yeah. For building applications. It's just a communication layer. Right? You don't have a tool called protocol. It is also not an alternative to MCP. Okay. Now for this, we have a introduction, simple tutorial. Yeah. So it needs an environment. It needs agent, agent skills, agent card, agent executor, connect to the server and interact with the agent. Okay. So see here, a sample repository, right? So this is just a environment. You need to install the SDK for it. Then we take the agent skills. See here, define the abilities or functions that an agent can perform, right? We should explain. This is an EcoBot. What all things that it can do. An agent card is a document that a A2A server makes available, like a digital business card for the agent, giving all of the details. Executor right? What are the requests, what answers, what responses, all that by the agent executor. This I think anyways with LangChain also we have. So you build a function, a hello world agent, a function, agent executor, you build a class, and then you specify all of the details within that. Okay. So then it executes. After that, you start a server, just like how you did with the MCP. Here you have a A2A server that you can start. So take a A2A server, agent executor, right? So you specify what is that agent, right? What is its capabilities, right? What is that card, everything, and then you interact with the server. Okay. A2A agent link. Yeah. Yeah. This is your entire interaction with the server where you can connect with it. Yeah. You can initialize the client, send a message, and then you get your responses coming back from the agent. Once it has interacted, it will ultimately do the task. So I think a better reference there would be for A2A is here, that video which we saw from the Google developers page, which is why I first took you to this link. Right? If you want to understand A2A, please go to this developers blog. They've given a very interesting blog. But if you actually want to interact with the server practically with the from a coding perspective, then go to the A2A protocol with the URL on its page. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think with that we should be good to stop. Any questions? Were you able to understand? Yes. Yeah, we did not take too much of a coding demo for A2A, right? But the concept itself is going to take a little time for you. Once you go through, right, you'll understand it better. Right. MCP, I think, is clear now because we saw a small demo also as to where it connects and how it works, what are the options, what are its capabilities with the code. Here we saw it's working, but not from a coding perspective, right? So we saw from the Google developers that video, which is already there. Yeah. So concept wise, I think conceptually you should be clear. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Agent to agent in industry implementation is that example which we saw for an enterprise agent wherein you delegate tasks for candidate hiring, for reviewing, background verification. You have one main agent. You have many agent which are defined for different individual tasks. You call out that, and then you are just going to access that agent, and then you will get the responses there, or it will do the task for you. Right. So that is one of the examples for industry implementation. Another one can actually be, right? Probably we had taken that earlier flight booking example, right? So maybe you have one agent and then it delegates some other agent to book flights, some other agent to look for cabs, some other agent to book hotels. So you have a itinerary planning agent. So it will just do everything. It will interact within itself. It will figure out, okay, this is the agent, and then it will do the task, give us the solutions. Okay. Yes, they interact within themselves and then get the work done. According to your prompts, obviously, it will show you. You can ask for a review. You can ask it to give you solutions as well. Right? Thank you. Where we were trying to enlighten you with some of the concepts that the industry demands in today's date, not just your Gen AI, but agentic AI, and also how to move forward from a coding perspective, from a no-code perspective, right? All of that to your enterprise AI agents, MCP, a little bit of A2A as well. Yeah. Okay. So if anybody has not yet filled your attendance, Sushmita has again put forward the link. Feel free to enter that. Great, thanks for your comments there.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you so much for all 5 days of informative session. We'll definitely be in touch with for upcoming FDPs or STPs. Thank you so much for your valuable time, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashmita. Thank you all. Good day. Great learning.
Yes, so dear faculty members, there are some updates about certificate and all. Kindly wait for 2 to 3 minutes. Then we will wind up. So as you all know, this is the last day for this particular program. So we are issuing the certificate within 10 to 15 working days. I request kindly wait for 10 to 15 working days. So if you are eligible, if you secure above 60% of attendance, as we inform the criteria, 60% of attendance is mandatory to get the certificate. Okay. And this is the faculty development program. So only for faculties we will issue the certificate. The students can join for the knowledge purpose as informed, but you will not get the certificate. And about the recordings and materials, all the recordings and materials will be available on LMS dashboard, where you can view the recording, like view the material and all. And we do have particular mail ID. If you have any query, you can kindly drop a mail. It is edl.xlr.com. I've just pinged the mail ID on chat. That is edl@xlr.com. Let me wait for 2 to 3 minutes. If any question you can post in chat, I will answer for it. Okay, I think we can wind up. Thank you all. Thank you for joining. So yeah, if you are interested, you can join our upcoming FDP or STP programs. You can visit www.xlr.com where you view all the upcoming courses and you can register. Thank you all. Have a great day.